Well, a couple of days ago, President Tinubu addressed the nation and declared a state of emergency in Rivers State. He also suspended the governor, Sim Fubara, his deputy, and the members of the State House of Assembly. Since then, that action has been called unconstitutional by the Nigerian Bar Association, and there have been cries from across Nigeria and internationally asking whether Nigeria's democracy is at risk. Now, the National Assembly did ratify the president's declaration of a state of emergency, as well as the suspension of Sim Fubara. Calls have gone out from Nigeria's only Nobel laureate, Wole Soyinka, a former president, Obasanjo, who says that Nigeria's democracy is dying, and the two men who stood against Tinubu in the 2023 elections, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and former Governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi. Well, today we'll be speaking with the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar about the state of democracy in Nigeria. You went on exile in 97?
Around 1992.
Before you went on exile, you survived an assassination attempt, I believe, in Kaduna.
Actually, I went into exile before the assassination because I came back from exile and then was elected into the Constitutional Assembly. So it was when we were in the Constitutional Assembly, I think around 1994, that I faced assassination attempt, and then
you went to London?
And then dashed out to London, and from London to United States.
I want you to explain a little bit about what happened that day, because, when we're talking about Nigerian democracy now, I think a lot of young people forget that people died, so that we would have democracy. I want a little bit about what happened that day, because there were members of your team that died that day, right?
Yeah, I mean, actually, most of them were security, my personal security at home, and then 6 policemen who had come, to rescue me. And unfortunately, they did not know that there were soldiers who were at the gate. And by the time they approached the gate, of course, then there was exchange of fire. I think that exchange of fire actually saved me, because the moment, those who held me hostage, in my room, had gunshots, they now immediately started running. So they came down. By the time they came down, they found that 6 of the 8 policemen were dead, and then 2 of my security also.
Were you in your room with your son?
Yes. I mean, my eldest son was with me. He came on holidays from UK. They got hold of him first, and, at gunpoint. And then when I now opened the window blind from upstairs, I saw that they are holding him. And at gunpoint, I decided to dare them. So I came out. I said, look, take back my son to his room. If you are looking for me, I'm here. So they took him back. And then, of course, as I was coming down the staircase, and it was a glass door, so they saw me, and they cocked an open fire. But then, as a trained person also, I went down. And then, of course, the bullets, went into the wall and glass and so on. And then they stopped, shooting. And I now got up. I said, but I'm coming to open the door for you. Why would you be, shooting? Open. So I opened. And they said, okay, take us to your room. I refused to take them to my room, because in my room I put my wife and my daughter inside the wardrobe. I locked them. So I went to my wife's room. I said, this is my room.
And you survived that? And
it was when we were in my wife's room, they had the gunshots, and then abandoned me, and then started running down, to escape. Later on, I was told it was a security operation.
Really?
Yeah, because the late Inspector General of Police and Kumasi confided in me, because there was a security meeting, and he reported that 6 of his policemen had been shot and died in Kaduna. And then a member of the security council said it was a security operation. So he said, if it was a security operation, am I not entitled to know as the Inspector General of Police? So that was...
Something else that happened in Kaduna that I think is very important when it comes to the history of democracy in Nigeria, but also your life is, was it the Hamla Hotel on the 25th of March, 92, when Shehu Musa Yar'Adua held your hand and MK Abiola's hand in the lead up to the primaries for the SDP presidential elections. And I wanted to ask, because you stepped down before the second round when Abiola and King were running against each other. Why did you step down? And there is the belief that you stepped down with the belief that you would be chosen as the vice presidential candidate, not Babagana Kingibe, who ended up being chosen. At that point when you were not chosen as VP, why did you still go along with everything?
No, I think there have been some misinterpretation or misrepresentation of what actually happened, even though I had in the past addressed, circumstances surrounding that incident. And after the first ballot, I called the late Shehu Yar'Adua. He was in Kaduna because he was barred then from attending any political gathering. So I told him, I said, look, if you don't come to Jos, there is every likelihood that, Babagana Kingibe was going to be elected. And I know you didn't want it. So you better come to Jos, no matter how late. And he drove all the way from Kaduna to Jos. By the time he came to Jos, it was about 3, 4 a.m. And he called for a meeting in Alhaji Ayakwande's house. I do not know what he discussed with the late MK Abiola. I didn't know. I was not privy to the meeting, and he did not tell me. But when we got to the meeting in Ambassador Kwande's house, all what he told me was that Turaki, I said, yes, sir. He said, step down for MK Abiola. I said, okay, sir. I've stepped down. So, not until, we came back to Kaduna, because after the second round and Abiola won, Abiola, late Shehu Yar'Adua and myself were on the same flight. So Abiola dropped us in Kaduna and then proceeded to Lagos. It was in Kaduna that he was telling me this was what he agreed with MK Abiola. So then, of course, we waited for a long time. It took time before Abiola announced his running mate. What I now came to understand was that Abiola was put under pressure by the SDP governors then. They threatened him and said, look, if you don't take Kingibe, we are not going to support you. And the reason being that all of them got their tickets when Kingibe was the chairman of SDP. So, and Abiola felt that it was a risk worth taking. So, and I think he decided to discard, the agreement he had with the late Yar'Adua. And, of course, nominated Kingibe as running mate.
I want you to maybe compare that in a bit to the last elections, 2023, when you decided not to pick the current minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, as your running mate. And some people believe that might have cost you the election. Do you regret not choosing Wike as your running mate?
No, not at all. Because, you see, in 2019, when I won the ticket in Port Harcourt, and I came back here and then went straight to Abeokuta to meet my boss, President Obasanjo. and told him, Mr. President, I have got the ticket. So he asked me, he said, okay, from where is your running mate going to come from? I said, of course, it's either southeast or southwest. He said, no, leave southwest. Because I was there for 8 years. Go to southeast. I said, okay, sir. Do you have anybody in mind? He said, yes. The first person he suggested was Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. So I told him Ngozi was not a member of our party. I believe if I forward the name to the party, they will reject. I said, okay. He said, what about Soludo? I said, Soludo too was not a member of our party, so they will not accept. And I said, what about Peter Obi? I said, Peter Obi is a member of the party. He said, okay, take him. I said, okay, sir. So
that was it.
That was it. So I came back here in this very same building, very same room, and I saw a meeting of the party leaders. Then I was cited by Uche Secondus and others, including Wike himself, Tambuwal. I remember there were about 7 of them. I said, look, I have been to my boss, and this is what he said. Do you have any objection? You are leaders of the party and also leaders of the governance forum. They said, no, we don't have objection. I said, okay, go and announce. Now, I came under a lot of criticism after that. They said I did not consult with the party enough. So in 2023, I threw the whole thing to the party. I said, okay, set up a committee and recommend 3 people for me to pick as running mate. And they set up a committee, and they came with a recommendation, number 1, number 2, and number 3. So I picked number 1.
Who are the other 2? Number 1, I'm guessing, was Okowa.
Yes, and the other one was Wike, I think number 2, and number 3, I don't...
No.
Yeah.
Udom,
that's right.
Mm. So you didn't pick Wike solely because he was the number 1?
He wasn't.
I want to ask, because some people will be interested that you asked Obasanjo's opinion on who you should pick as your vice presidential candidates, because you two historically are known to have not gotten along when he was the vice president and you were the vice president.
Well, notwithstanding, he was my boss and still my boss.
Yeah.
So I owe him that, that respect and that loyalty, because I didn't ask to be vice president. He simply called me and I said, are you ready to be my vice president? I said, why not, sir? He said, okay.
Okay. And now, let's focusing a bit on what's going on in Nigeria, with President Tinubu just recently declaring a state of emergency. Just earlier today, I believe, Obasanjo said that Nigeria's democracy is dying. Do you agree? Do you think the situation is very dire?
It is very dire, no doubt about that. I feel disappointed. The next generation after me, many of them had been governors, had been senators. Instead of me to see an improvement in the level of governance at the state level and so on and so forth, I don't see it. So I feel a little bit distressed.
Mm. But now you formed a coalition, and included in that coalition is Nasir El-Rufai and possibly Peter Obi. People are asking how successful that coalition can be going into 2027 if everyone heading the coalition wants to be president. So who do you think is going to head the coalition, and are you going to run for president again?
We had a similar, what will I say, merger in 2014. I mean, excuse me.
Sorry, sir.
And there were about 4 of us, is it 2 or 3? We all ran for president, and one of us emerged, and we all supported the one who emerged, and he won.
So you're going to run again?
I don't know, because there has to be, first of all, a viable platform, and more than any other time in the political history of this country, particularly since the return of democracy, I have not seen Nigeria in dire need of, an experience and credible leadership than this time.
I want to ask another question that I've been thinking about. When I was looking at the SDP primaries then, 92, the person who came forth was a woman, Sarah Jibril. She got 950 votes. Since then, it seems there's been a decline of women, participation in leadership positions in Nigeria. Do you think that what I'm saying is like an accurate representation of the situation for women in politics in Nigeria?
Yes, it is disheartening or disappointing. I don't know what to say, which word to use about the decline. I remember when we were in office, the president once called me and said, Mr. Vice President, in which states in the north can we get a woman governor? I think at that point in time I said, possibly in Taraba, and we tried, it didn't work. But eventually, I think I supported the late Mama Taraba, and she did very well. Actually, she won, and they just took it away from her. The courts, again, took it away from her. So, and I think the women need to be encouraged there. It needs to be encouraged and need to be supported. Yeah.
Yeah, the new president of Namibia is a woman, and her vice president is also a woman.
Yes, I'm aware.
Yeah, she recently spoke a bit in support of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Addo, who's a woman senator in Nigeria, who's currently going possibly a recall process, but she's currently been suspended from the Senate. And a lot of people view her suspension as meaning that the PDP is weak or opposition is weak. Do you believe that the PDP has been weakened?
Yes, definitely. The PDP is weak because we have a compromised leadership in the party, and there is no doubt about that.
Were you surprised that the state of emergency passed so easily in the National Assembly?
I was not surprised because I know the leadership is corrupt. I have no apologies about that. And they could do anything. And the Senate president is known actually to be, to be having those type of character, even when he was a governor. So I got the reports quite a lot.
You got reports that when Akpabio was a governor, he was corrupt?
He was corrupt. Not only he was corrupt, but he was also in the habit of abusing, women. Yeah.
Oh, you got those reports before?
Yeah, I got that report before.
So there have also been allegations that there has been payment being made to legislators to vote, for or against what the president announced, the state of emergency and suspension of Fubara. But these allegations have come up before. I remember I spoke to Wabara, who's the former Senate president, and he said that even in the Senate during the third term era, that there were allegations of vote buying. Is this unusual for Nigeria's National Assembly, or is this how things go?
Well, it all depends on the leadership of the particular time, of the National Assembly. Of course, during Wabara's time, we had allegations of bribery, and lots of money was brought on the floor of the National Assembly, by members to say, look, this is the money they brought to us, to buy us. But it's not the case with the current National Assembly. There have been allegations of corruption and vote buying by the executive on almost every aspect of the National Assembly. Yeah.
And so if we're going forward in Nigeria, how do you think that we can make democracy more entrenched? Particularly, because I know you were very close to Shehu Musayar-Adua, and he's seen as one of the strongest proponents for democracy in Nigeria. He died fighting for democracy in Nigeria. Does the state of affairs make you mourn those you have lost to this fight?
No, I will not say I have lost this fight. Maybe until I cannot fight anymore.
And you're going to keep fighting?
Yes. For democracy, definitely yes.
And do you think that there is hope for Nigeria?
There is hope. There is hope.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome. At this one. Thank you.